The desert winds of Zinter howled across the crimson sands as Captain Marcus Kane's starship, the Resolute, touched down near the crystalline palace of King Xanathar. The golden spires gleamed under the planet's twin suns, casting iridescent reflections that danced like fire on the rippling sands. Marcus stepped off the ship, his boots sinking slightly into the gritty terrain. His crew remained on board, ready to respond at a moment's notice. He had fought hard to save this planet. The Bloodsky Raiders, a ruthless band of intergalactic marauders, had descended on Zinter weeks ago, intent on stripping its energy core's precious artifacts that were the heart of the planet's ecosystems. When the distress signal reached Earth's coalition of united systems, Marcus had been the first to answer. Now, he was the reason Zinter still stood. The palace gates opened with a soft hum, revealing a procession of Zintharians. Their shimmering, crystalline skin glinted in the sunlight, each facet reflecting hues of purple, gold, and blue. At the forefront stood King Xanathar, a towering figure draped in a flowing robe that seemed to shift colors with his movements. His golden eyes were alight with gratitude as he approached Marcus. "Captain Marcus Kane," the king said, his voice deep and melodic, echoing as if carried on a gentle breeze. "You have not only answered our cry for help, you have delivered us from certain doom. Zinter owes you a debt beyond measure." Marcus inclined his head, his Earth military training keeping his posture formal. "I was just doing my duty, Your Majesty. The Coalition stands for peace and justice, no matter the world." The king's lips curved into a wry smile. "And yet, you went beyond the call. You risked your own life to dismantle the Raiders' flagship, personally leading the assault. Such bravery cannot go unrewarded." Marcus hesitated. He wasn't here for rewards. "The safety of your people is enough for me." Xanathar raised a hand, silencing him with regal authority. "It is Zintharian tradition to honor those who have saved us. A gift must be given, a treasure to match the magnitude of your deeds." Before Marcus could protest, the king clapped his hands, and the grand doors of the throne room opened. A line of Zintharian attendants entered, each holding ornate banners. Behind them came 5 women, each as striking and distinct as the Zintharian landscape itself. They moved with confidence, their gazes sharp and defiant. Their skin shimmered in iridescent colors, but their expressions were anything but harmonious. They exuded an aura of rebellion, restless, untamed energy crackling in the air around them. "These," the king announced, "are my most troublesome and rebellious slaves. Lyra, Zora, Enix, Valira, and Saris. They are powerful, cunning, and utterly defiant. They have caused no end of grief in my court. Perhaps you, great hero, can do what I could not, tame their wild spirits." Marcus's eyes widened. Slavery was an abhorrent practice on Earth, outlawed centuries ago. Yet here it was, alive and well on Zinter. He opened his mouth to object, but the women's piercing stares made him pause. The first to speak was Lyra, her emerald green skin shimmering with a faint golden hue as her voice cut through the silence. "Tame us? What arrogance! Do you think we'll bow to a mere human?" Zora, her indigo skin reflecting flecks of silver, crossed her arms. "He doesn't look like much. I've seen sandworms with more bite." Enix, the tallest of the group, with a sleek physique and bronze-toned skin, smirked. "Perhaps he's braver than he looks. After all, he did save this planet." Valira, whose pearlescent skin seemed to ripple with hidden patterns, leaned closer, her gaze sharp and assessing. "Or perhaps he's just foolish." Saris, the smallest but most intense, with eyes like twin sapphires, tilted her head. "What do you think, Captain? Do you have what it takes to handle us?" Marcus felt a headache coming on. "I think there's been a misunderstanding," he said, addressing the king. "I don't believe in slavery. If these women are under your control, then I ask that you release them." The women exchanged looks of surprise, followed by skeptical smirks. The king, however, appeared unfazed. "Their freedom is not so easily granted. They would be hunted, their abilities exploited. But under your guidance, they may find purpose and peace. The weight of the situation pressed on Marcus. He couldn't simply walk away and leave these women to their fate. At the same time, he wasn't sure how to navigate this alien culture without overstepping his bounds. "Fine," he said at last, his voice firm. "But they're not slaves. They're free to leave if they choose." The women burst into laughter, their voices ringing out like a chorus of chiming bells. Lyra's gaze locked onto his, challenging. "Free? Do you even know what freedom means on this planet, human?" Marcus stared back, unflinching. "Maybe it's time you find out." The king's expression softened into something resembling respect. "You are an unusual man, Captain Marcus Kane. Perhaps you will accomplish what I could not." As Marcus and the 5 women left the throne room together, he couldn't shake the feeling that his greatest challenge had just begun. The sun had begun its descent behind the jagged peaks of Zenter's horizon, casting the desert in hues of fiery orange and deep indigo. Captain Marcus Kane leaned against the railing of the guest quarters terrace, watching the strange beauty of the alien world. Behind him, chaos brewed. Lyra paced furiously, her emerald skin flickering in irritation. "This is absurd. A human is supposed to guide us? What makes you so special?" Enix sharpened a blade with deliberate precision, the metallic sound grating against the tension in the room. "If he thinks we'll follow orders, he's more naive than he looks." Valira leaned casually against the wall, her shimmering pearlescent skin creating ripples of illusionary color. "I think it's cute. He's trying so hard to play the hero." Saris, perched cross-legged on a divan, smirked. "Perhaps we should humor him for a while. Who knows? He might surprise us." Zora stood by the window, her indigo skin reflecting the fading light, silent but watchful. She finally spoke, her tone measured. "Mock him all you want, but he defeated the raiders. That makes him dangerous, or at least capable." Marcus exhaled deeply, stepping back into the room. "You know, I can hear you." All 5 women turned to him, their expressions ranging from amused to indifferent. It was Lyra who broke the silence. "Good. Saves us the trouble of pretending." Marcus crossed his arms, his voice steady but firm. "Let's get one thing straight. I didn't ask for this. I don't believe in slavery, and I don't believe anyone should have control over another. The king offered you to me, but I don't see you as property. You're free to make your own choices." "Free," Zora repeated with a faint scoff. As if the concept means anything here. "The moment we step outside this palace without his approval, we'll be marked as traitors or worse, prey. And if we stay, we're just his entertainment," Lyra added bitterly. "Rebels for him to tame, one way or another." Marcus took a step closer, meeting her fierce gaze. "Then we change the game." The room fell silent, the weight of his words sinking in. Enix raised an eyebrow. "You've got guts, human. I'll give you that. What exactly are you proposing?" Saris asked, her sapphire eyes narrowing. "Overthrow the king? Start a revolution?" "Nothing so dramatic," Marcus replied, though he could see the spark of interest in their eyes. "I'm proposing a partnership. If you're stuck here anyway, let's make the most of it. Teach me about Zenter, about your abilities, about what you want, and I'll help you figure out how to achieve it." Lyra folded her arms. "And why would we trust you?" "You don't have to," Marcus said simply. "But I've already risked my life to save this planet. I'm not your enemy." Valira chuckled softly. "He's good. I'll give him that." "Fine," Lyra said after a moment, though her tone was anything but enthusiastic. "We'll see how long this partnership lasts." A test of strength the next morning, Marcus awoke to the sound of clashing metal. He followed the noise to the palace training grounds, where Enix was sparring with one of the king's guards. She moved like a dancer, her bronze-toned skin gleaming as she dodged and struck with precision. Within seconds, her opponent was disarmed and flat on his back. She turned to Marcus, a wicked grin on her face. "Care to try your luck, Captain?" Marcus hesitated. He wasn't eager to get into a fight, but backing down would undermine the fragile rapport he was building. "All right, but don't hold back." The other women gathered around, their expressions ranging from amused to curious. Marcus took a basic fighting stance, knowing full well he was outmatched. Onyx circled him like a predator, her blade humming with energy. She lunged, and Marcus barely dodged in time. He countered with a quick strike, but she blocked effortlessly, her movements fluid and confident. For every attack he launched, she had a counter, pushing him to his limits. Sweat dripped down his brow as he realized she was testing him, gauging his resolve. Finally, he saw an opening. He feinted left, then spun right, managing to knock her weapon from her hand. The crowd gasped as Onyx stumbled back, momentarily caught off guard. She laughed, a genuine sound that broke the tension. "Not bad, Captain. Maybe you're not as useless as I thought." The other women exchanged glances, their skepticism giving way to grudging respect. Even Lyra seemed impressed, though she hid it behind a scowl. Building bridges. Over the next few days, Marcus made it his mission to learn about each woman. He discovered Lyra's telekinesis was linked to her emotions, her power flaring whenever she was angry or passionate. Zora's energy manipulation allowed her to absorb and redirect raw energy, a skill she had perfected through years of defiance. Valira's illusions were as intricate as they were disorienting, capable of fooling even advanced technology. Onyx, unsurprisingly, excelled in combat, while Saris's gift for languages and strategy made her a master negotiator. Each of them had talents that could change the course of a battle or a world. Slowly but surely, the walls between them began to crumble. The women still tested Marcus at every turn, but their defiance was no longer fueled by hostility. They began to see him as someone who wasn't trying to control them, but rather to understand them. One evening, as the group sat around a fire pit on the palace grounds, Valira spoke up. "You're different from the other humans we've heard about." "How so?" Marcus asked. "You don't act superior," she said. "You don't treat us like tools or trophies. It's strange." Marcus chuckled. "I guess Earth has taught me that leadership isn't about control. It's about trust." The firelight reflected in their eyes, and for the first time, Marcus felt a flicker of something he hadn't expected: hope. This uneasy alliance was far from perfect, but it was a start. And in a world as volatile as Zenther, a start was more than enough. The first few days of Marcus's partnership with the Rebellious Five were anything but smooth. Despite their tentative acceptance of his leadership, the women seemed determined to challenge him at every turn. Their wild spirits refused to be subdued, and their penchant for chaos made it clear they weren't ready to fall in line. For Marcus, it was like herding plasma storms, unpredictable, dangerous, and strangely exhilarating. The duel with Onyx began with a challenge. Onyx, still unconvinced of Marcus's worth as a leader, wanted to test him again. The sparring match on the training grounds had been an appetizer. Now, she sought the main course. She stood before him in the palace's combat arena, a sleek staff humming with energy in her hands. "I wasn't holding back last time," she said with a sly grin, "but I wasn't trying to break you either. Let's see what you're really made of, Captain." The other women gathered on the sidelines, their expressions ranging from curiosity to amusement. Lyra leaned against the wall, her arms crossed. "This should be good." Marcus sighed, stepping into the ring. "You're really set on this, aren't you?" "Of course," Onyx said, spinning her staff. "A leader needs to prove their worth following." Marcus reached for a standard combat baton from the armory rack. "Fine, but if I win, we start working together, no more challenges." Onyx smirked. "Deal." The duel began. Enix was relentless, her strikes precise and calculated. Marcus relied on his military training, dodging and parrying as best he could. He quickly realized that brute force wouldn't work against her. She was faster, stronger, and far more skilled. Instead, he focused on reading her movements, anticipating her attacks. The fight lasted longer than anyone expected. Marcus managed to land a few hits, his strategic thinking keeping him in the game. Eventually, he found an opening and used his baton to disarm her, sending her staff clattering across the arena. Enix blinked, stunned, then laughed. "Well played, Captain." Marcus extended a hand to help her up. "Like I said, we're stronger together." As she took his hand, a flicker of respect passed between them. It wasn't full trust yet, but it was a step in the right direction. Valira's pranks. While Enix tested Marcus with physical challenges, Valira used her mastery of illusions to play tricks on him. One morning, Marcus woke to find his quarters completely transformed. The walls seemed to shift and ripple, creating an endless maze. Every time he turned a corner, he ended up back where he started. "Valira," he shouted, his voice echoing in the disorienting space. Her laughter rang out, though he couldn't pinpoint its source. "Just a little test, Captain. Can you find the truth in the illusion?" Marcus closed his eyes, calming his racing mind. He focused on his breathing, filtering out the distractions. He remembered her words, the illusion was a test. He began tapping the walls, listening for inconsistencies. After a few minutes, he found a section that didn't resonate the same way. He pressed against it, and the illusion shattered, revealing the real room. Valira clapped from the doorway, her pearlescent skin shimmering with amusement. "Impressive, Captain. Most people panic or get angry." Marcus arched an eyebrow. "I've dealt with holographic training exercises before. You'll have to do better than that." She grinned. "Oh, I intend to." The palace raid. The tentative truce between Marcus and the women was tested when a group of rogue Bloodsky raiders infiltrated the palace grounds. The attack was sudden, but the women reacted instantly, their abilities springing into action. Lyra used her telekinesis to hurl debris at the intruders, creating barriers to protect the palace staff. Zora absorbed the energy blasts from the raiders' weapons, redirecting them with devastating force. Enix moved like a whirlwind, disarming and incapacitating enemies with her blade. Marcus, armed with a plasma rifle, coordinated their efforts. Lyra blocked the southern exit. Zora, focus on that heavy gunner there targeting the main gate. Enix, cover me while I take out their leader. The women followed his commands without hesitation, their previous skepticism momentarily forgotten. Valira used her illusions to confuse and mislead the raiders, while Saris hacked into their comms, feeding false information to sow chaos among their ranks. By the time reinforcements arrived, the raiders were defeated. The group stood together, breathing heavily but victorious. "That was efficient," Lyra admitted begrudgingly. "You gave good orders," Zora added, her tone neutral but her expression thoughtful. Marcus nodded, wiping sweat from his brow. "We make a good team." A moment of unity. That evening, the group gathered around a fire pit on the palace grounds. The victory against the raiders had forged a new sense of camaraderie, though none of them would admit it outright. "You're not what I expected," Sari said, breaking the silence. Her sapphire eyes reflected the flickering flames. "Most humans we've heard about are different." "Arrogant," Lyra said bluntly. "Short-sighted," added Zora. "Easily manipulated," Valira chimed in, smirking. Marcus chuckled. "Well, I like to think I'm not most humans." Enix raised her drink in a mock toast. "To the human who's not completely useless." The others laughed, and Marcus couldn't help but smile. It wasn't exactly glowing praise, but it was progress. As the night wore on, they began to share stories. The women opened up about their pasts, the challenges they faced, the reasons for their defiance. For the first time, Marcus saw them not just as rebels, but as individuals with hopes and fears. "You didn't choose this life," Marcus said softly. "But you're making the best of it. That's strength." Lyra glanced at him, her expression unreadable. "And what about you, Captain? What drives you?" Marcus stared into the fire. "I've seen too many people suffer because of greed and power. If I can make a difference, even a small one, it's worth it." For a moment, the group was silent, the weight of his words settling over them. By the time the fire burned low, Marcus felt something shift between them. The Rebellious Five were still wild and unpredictable, but they no longer saw him as an outsider. They had become a team, an unlikely alliance forged in the fires of chaos. The alarm klaxons blared across the crystalline palace, echoing through its towering halls. Marcus and the 5 women stood in the command chamber, staring at the holographic display that hovered above the central console. The Bloodsky Raiders had regrouped, and this time, their fleet was larger, their strategy more aggressive. They weren't just coming to plunder Zinta, they were coming to destroy it. King Xanathar stood at the head of the room, his expression grim. "We cannot survive another attack of this magnitude. Captain Kane, what is your plan?" All eyes turned to Marcus. He glanced at the 5 women, their expressions resolute. Despite their earlier defiance, they now stood with him as allies, their abilities honed and their spirits unbroken. "I have a plan," Marcus said, his voice steady. "But it's risky." "We like risky," Enoch said with a smirk, tightening the grip on her blade. Marcus nodded. "Good, because this will require all of us working together." The Bloodsky Raiders were using a massive flagship as the core of their fleet. This vessel was their command center, housing the raider leader and coordinating the smaller attack ships. Marcus's plan was to infiltrate the flagship and destroy its control systems from within, leaving the rest of the fleet disorganized and vulnerable. "This is suicide," Xanathar said, his golden eyes narrowing. "It's a calculated risk," Marcus countered. "Their fleet is too powerful to face head-on. Disabling their flagship is our best chance." The 5 women nodded in agreement. Lyra stepped forward. "We'll take care of the infiltration. With our abilities, we can slip past their defenses. And I'll handle the flagship's core systems," Saris added. "If I can access their central command hub, I can disable their communications and weaponry." "I'll keep their soldiers busy," Enoch said, her confidence unwavering. "They won't know what hit them." Marcus turned to Zora and Valira. "You two will cover our exit. Zora, you can redirect their energy blasts, and Valira, use your illusions to create chaos." "And what about you, Captain?" Valira asked, her tone curious. "I'll lead the charge," Marcus said. "If we're going to pull this off, we need to work as a team." The infiltration, the stolen raider transport ship hummed as it approached the flagship. Inside, the team prepared for battle. Lyra's telekinetic energy sparked around her hands, Zora tested the small energy core strapped to her belt, and Valira practiced casting illusions, her pearlescent skin shimmering with every movement. Saris worked at the ship's controls, her sapphire eyes focused. "We'll dock in 5 minutes. Once we're inside, we'll have to move quickly." Enoch grinned, her blade strapped to her back. "Quick's my specialty." The ship docked with a faint hiss, and the team slipped into the flagship's corridors. The halls were dimly lit, the hum of machinery echoing ominously. Raiders patrolled in pairs, their weapons drawn, but the group moved silently, their footsteps muffled by Lyra's telekinetic dampening field. When they reached the core chamber, the real battle began. The Raiders had anticipated an attack and sent reinforcements to the core. The team sprang into action, their abilities working in perfect harmony. Lyra hurled crates and debris at the enemy, using her telekinesis to create barriers that protected the group. Zora absorbed the energy from incoming blasts and redirected it, her hands glowing with power. Valira cast illusions that made the group appear to multiply, confusing the raiders and drawing their fire away from the real targets. Enix was a blur of motion, her blade slicing through the air with precision. She took down soldier after soldier, her movements fluid and deadly. Meanwhile, Marcus and Saris reached the core's control hub. Saris hacked into the system, her fingers flying over the alien console. "Just a few more seconds," she muttered, sweat beading on her forehead. "We don't have a few seconds." Marcus shouted, firing his plasma rifle at an approaching raider. "Done," Saris announced as the core systems powered down. The lights flickered, and the hum of the ship's engines grew faint. The raiders' communications and weaponry were disabled. "Time to go," Marcus shouted. The escape. The team fought their way back to the transport ship, the remaining raiders in disarray. Valira created a massive illusion of a collapsing hallway, buying them precious seconds. Zora unleashed a wave of redirected energy, knocking back the pursuing soldiers. When they reached the transport, Marcus turned to Lyra. "Can you close the docking bay doors behind us?" She nodded, her emerald skin glowing with effort. The doors slammed shut just as the ship launched, sealing the raiders inside their own disabled flagship. As the transport sped away, they watched from a safe distance as the flagship exploded, taking a significant portion of the raider fleet with it. The remaining ships scattered, retreating in disarray. The Revolution. When the team returned to Zinter, they were met with cheers and celebrations. The people hailed them as heroes, their bravery having saved the planet once again. King Xanathar greeted them in the palace throne room, his expression a mix of pride and humility. "You have done the impossible. Zinter owes you a debt it can never repay." Lyra stepped forward, her voice steady. "Then repay it by granting us our freedom." The king's golden eyes widened, but he saw the determination in their faces. He looked at Marcus, who nodded in silent support. Xanathar sighed, then raised his hands. "Very well. From this day forward, you are free." The announcement sent ripples through the crowd gathered outside the palace. The Rebellious Five had become symbols of strength and defiance, inspiring others to question the status quo. A cultural shift began to take root, one that would shape Zinter's future for generations. A new beginning. As the team prepared to leave Zinter aboard the Resolute, Marcus looked at the women who had become his closest allies. "So, what's next?" he asked. Lyra smirked. "Wherever the stars take us." Enix grinned. "As long as there's a good fight." Valira tilted her head. "And maybe some mischief." Zora nodded. "And purpose." Sari smiled. Together. As the ship lifted off, Marcus couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. They weren't just rebels anymore, they were a family. And together, they were unstoppable.